Hi, I'm Tony Figueroa, the Child of Television, and this is a special edition of This Week in TV History, and it's not a great week. I don't normally talk about my day job. It's as a VIP guide at Universal Studios Hollywood, and Sunday, the 14th, somebody actually asked me who was the nicest person, the nicest celebrity that you've ever taken around the studio. And I said, let me get back to you, because I've had the fortune of taking around a lot of high-profile people, and so many of them were incredibly nice to me. And later on, we heard what happened at Rob Reiner's house, and I started reminiscing about the day I got to take Rob Reiner around. This was in the 90s, and Rob Reiner was very active with early childhood education. So that was the topic of conversation that was constantly returning to that particular topic. His wife Michelle was with him, the kids, their kids, and some adult friends. And we'd walk through the park, and if we stopped to look at something or get a photo, there'd always be a park guest walking up to me and whispering, is that Meathead? And I would say, yeah, but he's here with his family. This is kind of family day. He's dad. And they go, oh, okay. And then as we would continue to the park, in the back we would hear, have fun storming the castle. And that was a constant thing. Somebody coming up to me, is this Meathead? And then have fun storming the castle. We had a lot of great conversations, and a few highlights of the day. One, we're in the studio, and he knows a lot, but his friends didn't. And we drove by an area called Little Europe. This is where we did all the classic monster movies in the 30s, and more recently the TV show The Good Place, Kristen Bell and Ted Danson. But as soon as we drove by, he went, this is where we did the running of the bulls in City Slickers. Talking about it. We also went down a street called Colonial Street. Now, if you've ever taken the tour, in the old days, everybody knew it as the street where the Munsters and Leave It to Beaver shot. Later, it was Wisteria Lane. It still is used constantly. But we passed by one house, and for Desperate Housewives people, it's Lynette's house, okay? But Rob knew it as the house from the movie The Thrill of It All with Doris Day and James Garner. That movie was directed by his father, Carl Reiner. And he's going, wait, I know, this is The Thrill of It All. And he goes, kids, my dad, Grandpa made a movie that took place in that house. And then he looks at me and he goes, you know about that, right? And I said, yeah, he did that movie. He directed it when he was on hiatus from the Dick Van Dyke Show. And he's like, no? Yes, he did do it when he was on hiatus from the Dick Van Dyke Show. We're back in the park. It's time for lunch. And I told him, I will meet you here at this time. And he said, no, you're having lunch with us. And I'm going, company policy, we do not have lunch with the guests. And he goes, I'm good friends with some people very high up in the company. You're having lunch with us. And again, we were talking about the early childhood education initiative that he was passionate about, a lot of TV history, movie history. We talked about Carol O'Connor. We're going through the park some more. Again, is that Meathead? Have fun storming the castle. And we do the Back to the Future ride. That was my favorite ride when it existed. They had a gift shop right outside the ride. It was called the Time Traveler's Depot. And it had watches and a lot of cool stuff from different time periods. And I'm telling everyone in the group, oh, if you go to the back shelf there's some really cool lava lamps. And one of the adults in the group looked at me and said, what are you saying? We're a bunch of old farts that all we care about is lava lamps? And I go, wait a second. I'll have you know, I share a birthday with the lava lamp. And Rob was fascinated by this. He goes, you share a birthday with the lava lamp? And I said, yeah. How would you know that? And I said, one day I'm driving to work on my birthday, and the DJ on the radio was saying, if today's your birthday, you share a birthday with Ronald Reagan, Zsa Zsa Gabor, Frank Zappa, and Mike Farrell. And if you were born on this day in 1965, you share a birthday with the lava lamp. And so I said, yeah, I was born February 6, 1965. And he's thinking, and he goes, wow, February 1965. And he's pondering. And I go, this was, you were writing for the Smothers Brothers at this time. And he's going, no, that would be later. And one of the adults in the group went, you wrote for the Smothers Brothers? And we're in a little gift shop in the theme park, and he lights up. He goes, oh yeah, man, we were writing for the Smothers Brothers, and we were like hippies, and we hated the war, and we didn't like Nixon, and we were part of the counterculture, and we were smoking pot and dropping acid, full voice for everybody to hear. And he said, and he looks at me and says, I was really critical of Tommy because I thought, he was selling out, and because a lot of our stuff didn't get, put on the air. And I didn't realize until I was much older how much Tommy fought for us and fought for our material. And he starts reenacting the material. I will not reenact the reenacting, but he started quoting a bunch of sketches that he wrote, and then he even did a song, full voice in the store, singing the particular song that was written for the Smothers Brothers. And he goes, well, how do you know about it? And I said, well, you were part of one of the greatest writing teams in television. Your dad was with Sid Caesar, you were with the Smothers Brothers, you were with Steve Martin and Lorenzo Music. And he goes, oh yeah, he was Jerry Music back then, and Bob Einstein. And, he just was so amazed that I knew about that time period. And I, of all the things we talked about, he was just beaming over that. And he also asked me about my politics. Growing up and seeing shows like All in the Family and seeing shows like the Smothers Brothers. And I said, well, I have a very conservative father, but a very liberal mother. And then he smiles and he goes, yeah, but the liberal part took over you, didn't it? Yeah. I said, yeah. I'm a Hollywood liberal, yeah. And, we continued for as long as we could. More great conversations, and he genuinely cared. So when you see the interviews and how he would express himself talking about whatever project or whatever cause he was passionate about, he was the genuine deal. The guy that you see on TV talking about these things on interview shows is the same guy I got to spend several hours with in the park. So a couple of things. My friend Joe Doherty, who's a frequent guest on TV Confidential, radio talk show about television, Emmy Award-winning writer on 30-something, and writer, producer, director on Pretty Little Liars. A few years ago, he told me, if there's somebody who really made a difference in your life, you should write him a letter. And he gave this advice to a lot of people. Somebody whose artistic works moved you, inspired you. Write that person a letter, a real letter, not an email, not something on their feed, but write them a real letter. So I'm going to share that advice with you. If there was somebody like a Rob Reiner that did something, motivated you, inspired you, made you want to do something good in your life, make sure you write that person a letter while they're still with us. A very talented storyteller and a very talented activist was silenced. And And I think all of us need to speak up when we need to speak up and tell our stories. So, good night, Meathead, and have fun storming the castle. Peace.